Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report.
Up here in Mesquite, all against this shoreline here, Ayers Dugout area. Down this shoreline here, there's been some decent redfish that have been cruising up and down this shoreline. Again, we've had some super big winds. We've had some finally just kind of laid off just a little bit, but forecast down the road looks like that's going to be happening again. So those things that you need to be aware of, these big high winds. Using the conventional anchor this past few days has been great. It's been really well, so it holds you in place. You don't have to worry about that power pole. So just take that into consideration if you're going to have to fish into these high wind times that we have coming up. Now, all that said, good amount of bait that's been working up and down this shoreline. It's been happening up and down here. You got little guts, deeper little back lake that runs off into this area here. Some scattered trout. We're finding a lot of trout that are in that 13 to 16 inch range, which last year would have been fine for box trout, but again this year you got the new reg of the 17 to 23, so those a little bit bigger fish have been a little bit more hard to come by. Now I anticipate that if you've been fishing the surf, which Cedar Bayou is just right across the way there from Mesquite, if you've been fishing the surf some, then you've probably been picking up a few fish out there as well. That's not going to do anything but increase as we get further into our springtime, and that pattern really starts to crank up as those fish will start showing up out there on the outside mouth. But for now, we've been working this past shoreline here down south. Again, we're on the backside of a full moon now. We're just a couple of days away from it, and so transitioning again. We've got the end of the full moon that's in place, so you may want to start with the smaller bait early mornings. Really work the minors early in the morning when they're taking place and that moon is setting. That's one thing that really be in your back pocket, be in your favor there. The bite, it's been really good during that time frame, and it's tapered once that moon has set and kind of gotten transitioned into later the day. It's been much more difficult to find and catch fish until we get later into the evening, and that's just the standard typical full moon time frame and what happens with that particular minor and majors that go on there. So utilize those time frames during that full moon. Utilize a smaller profile bait. The burner shads, any of the colors that you want, depending on what your water clarity has been really good. Still throwing a 16th ounce jig head to keep that bait in that water column a lot longer to help it float through that water column. Give those fish plenty of time to work and find what you're throwing at them. The regular size down south and any of the flavors that you like have been just fine. Been throwing some soft dines. The smaller version of the soft dines have been really good. The Marker 54 jerk shrimp have been pretty productive, and then the topwater bite has still been pretty good. It has tapered some since we've been in the full moon, but it has been really good outside of those time frames and in the transition time frames as well. Continue to work these areas here. Work your shell pads. There's fish starting to show up on those as well, off these little points that come around here as you head down into Bray Cove. Come on around that edge and get up there into that back lake. Come down this shoreline. This back lake that's right here in Bray has been good. Topwater action, that has been really fun. There's been some nice redfish we've pulled out of that area. Been some decent trout that's been pulled out of there as well. Topwater has been the main thing to have thrown in these back lake areas, getting that knee-deep water. And it's been lots of fun to let those fish get up there and get on top of those topwater baits and then watch the blow-ups happen and explosions happen. If you can work your plastics in that with that 16th ounce jig head, you'll have a great opportunity, especially when the water levels are back up. We had it drop out a little bit, then it came back, so we've had a fluctuation there. So that's something you really need to pay attention to during that time frame as well, is seeing where those tides are to see if these back lakes will open up for you. As we've worked down these edges, worked on the outside, worked the mouths of all these, we found decent fish and all these redfish and trout. Pulled out a couple of flounder as well, but all that's been on the down south, mostly the burner shads. So you may just want to work those, and if you have other stuff that's in other baits that are in that 2.5 to 3 inch size profile, throw it, whatever you like. Continue to work all these areas here and watch what your bait's doing. Pay attention to what your water levels are doing and your wind, so you keep yourself safe out there. Up here in Carlos, this little shoreline that's been right in here, and then of course you got this little banana-shaped shell pad that comes right off this point right there. There's been some decent trout that have been hanging in and around that. Now, there hadn't been a big number of them, but there have been a few trout that's hanging off of that. Again, in the smaller profile size baits, again, we're transitioning. Just had our full moon. We're transitioning away from that now. So each day that we get away from that and we start getting into those wild card days or 10 days of transition to a new moon, you're probably going to want to keep that smaller profile bait for now. Just pay attention to what your bite is, what's going on with that. Primarily these bites we've been getting with these trout and redfish around these shell little pads and shell reefs and stuff have come off the burner shad, have come off the regular size down south. Also the mirror lure Little John and provokers have been pretty productive as well. Again, the topwater bite has been okay. Especially around this full moon time frame that we've had. It's kind of tapered a little bit. Before we had the full moon in place, it was really good. If you can get into these back lakes that are here behind Carlos, some of these are accessible. Well, most of them are accessible if you come into Spalding, but you can, if you want to kind of double fish this, you can fish right here and drop your boat and then walk across into these back lakes. And that's where we've been throwing a lot of these topwaters, is in the back lakes, especially when our water levels are right. Again, that need of thigh deep water has been pretty much spot on for throwing the topwater bait. Plus, there's still enough water level in there for you. Throwing the lighter jig heads, the regular size down south in there as well, so you can really work the plastics in that shallower water like that and keep it floating in that water column without it getting hung up into the grass. So, but if that is a problem for you and you want to get back there and you want to throw that, then just go to a weedless setup. It's pretty easy to do. Plus, it'll help you keep from getting hung up. Now, your hook sets will go down a little bit because it's got to come through that plastic to get into that fish's mouth. So just to be aware of that. Your hookups will be just a little bit less than what it would be if you had an open hook. But anyway, it still gives you an opportunity to get back in some of these, and maybe if you haven't experienced that, to give yourself an opportunity to fish in those back lakes in that grass and all those areas back there, because it's really a lot of fun. Once those fish get back into those areas, usually there's not anybody back there that bothers them. So it's kind of an untouched area for many days, so those fish are not very spooky. So it gives you a great opportunity to catch those fish. Again, incorporate your majors and minors in those time frames. Now, if you get back into those back lakes and some of those areas that are back in there, either out of Carlos or in the Spalding area, make sure you got bait working back in there, or at least the presence of bait working back in there. So if you get back there and you don't see anything happening, you don't see anything going on as far as your bait process is going, then more than likely your fish are not going to be there. So just be very aware of that when you do. So if you do see that bait working, then give yourself an opportunity and really spend some time working back in those back areas. Again, the down south regular version and the burner shads have been most productive for me the last few days. The past week has been really the best. The mirror lure Little Johns have also been very productive, depending on what your water clarity is. If you've got that real clear, gin clear water, if you've got lots of grass beds and areas that you're fishing in, that the translucent red and gold glitter, kitchen sink, those have all been good. If you got the down south dirty tequila, has been really good, especially in the regular version. You get that dirtier water where it's kind of muddied up. Just a little bit of a chartreuse tail, orange or yellowtail, has been productive for us as well, helping us locate and find fish, and those fish to locate where our baits are at. Work all these areas. Again, majors and minors are very important, especially during the full moon phase or just transition away from that full moon, to incorporating that into your fishing day to continue to be productive. Down here in Italian Bend, all this little area all down in here, man, the water levels have come back some. So this is really kind of lit up, man. They've got these little back lakes that are all back up in there. So you have some fish that's been cruising in and out of those areas there with that little bit higher water level. There's been a lot of bait that's been working down in here in this little cove. All this area here is great wading, great bottom for this. There's starting to be some grass that's starting to show back up that's in this area as well. So the main thing that's been here is, again, the last few days or a few weeks, or during this moon phase that we've been in, the full moon, is the burner shads and the regular size down south have been the most productive in this area. And again, the soft dine has been good. Some of this water down here, when you get it protected, because you get that south-southeast breeze or even an east breeze, all this gets back in this Italian Bend area, gets protected pretty well. So that water has a tendency to get clear on you, or clear up where you can see a good 1.5 feet, maybe 2 foot down into the water levels, or even when you're fishing a little bit further out, belly deep water. So again, the translucent baits have been good, the Dirty Tequila by Down South, or the Mirror Little Johns. Golden Red Glitter have been good. The Kitchen Sink, which is a gold and black flavor that's in there as well, has been really good. With that real darting action, that's gotten a lot of reactionary strikes from that. You can work all this area up in here. Look for your bait working in this. Like I say, there's been plenty of bait. You get in these mouths of these little areas that are back here in Italian Bend. We've pulled out a couple of oversized reds in there as well. So we've cut those loose and put those back, but those were a lot of fun to catch. Again, your topwater bait, if you want to get right up there on the edge of that grass line, find you a trout, redfish, either one cruising or up and down that shoreline up in there, all the way up in the coves, all the way back up to the point. As you come back out this way, you can get back out here on this point of Italian Bend and work that edges out there with your plastics or the soft dines have been good. It's been a little bit scattered. Again, the trout have been in that that 13 to 16 size range. We've caught a few of those. Scattered 17 to 23s, not a lot, but there's been more redfish than we've caught of anything. This all back in this area here. But again, when you work this area of Italian Bend, it's one of these areas where if you're going to go spend a little bit of time, pick you out a major or minor if it works out for you to be in whatever time of the day that happens to be happening. Get back in there and work that. Spend that 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and just get out of your boat, wade this whole area back in there. You can really can't really cover it in 2 to 2.5 hours, but you can cover it really methodically, and you'll find some fish in there. But probably normally, if you were drifting it, you wouldn't locate, because they'll come by in patches. You'll find some holding in some areas they won't be. But again, it's been pretty productive back in here. Some days obviously are hit or miss, but go back in there and work those. If you've got stuff that's in your favor, you've got bait working, you've got the right amount of water working that's in there, you've got a major or minor that's taking place that's back in there, you're going to find some fish, because they like to get down into this little area here, because they got a lot of opportunities. They can find food, they can eat, they can get protection from that, from porpoise that are cruising out in Port Bay and parts of Copano Bay. That's kind of a safe haven for them to a degree. They can get away from them. So, but you can get down there, wade that whole area, enjoy it, take your time with it, again, and just work those smaller baits for now, and locate what your fish are doing as far as where your bait are at, and then you'll locate your fish if you take your time with it.
Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Larry Bell.